Hi everyone, my name is Kristen Hart and I am the VCE Wellbeing Coordinator for all Academy students in Year 11 and 12 this year. And today I thought it would be really important to talk about identifying and managing stress in VCE. To start, I wanted to unpack what it means to be stressed because often we hear the term, I'm really stressed out quite often, but I think it's really important to identify what it means to be stressed, but also what are the things that are particularly causing stress in your children in VCE. So often when we are stressed, we have some form of physiological and psychological arousal. So our mind might be racing, we might see physical signs of stress. And usually this is placed upon us either internally or externally. And essentially when we are stressed, it means that we are exceeding our ability to cope in that particular situation. Now in VCE, there are quite a number of stresses that might pop up throughout the year. Commonly we'll see internal stresses. These are things like students having a high expectation on themselves to exceed and get the highest marks possible. We see perfectionism creeping in quite a bit, that all of the notes have to be written perfectly and neatly and everything has to be done to a certain standard. We see anxiety creep up quite a lot in SAC heavy periods. So often your children will have SACs, sometimes 3 in 1 week, and they are their assessments that lead to their end of year scores. So it can really add that extra little bit of stress in their year if they're in VCE, especially year 12. We see changes in motivation, especially if the stress is prolonging over a long period of time. And we can also see stress through an increase in the intensity of exercise, whether that's through training or competition schedules. So these are things to be mindful as parents or caregivers as to the things you might need to look out for over the course of the year. Also, we have external stresses. So these are the things that are added on to your children externally from their environment. And often these things can be a little bit more out of their control. And these are the things that I personally have found as a teacher, but also as a wellbeing coordinator, the things that our students will struggle with the most. So often we'll see an increase in their workload, whether that's through a heavy SAC period, homework, classwork, or leading into exams at the end of the year. At times we can see pressure from family, peers, maybe having a bit of a competitive spirit in the class or comparing results that can often evoke a little bit of stress in our students, especially if they're disappointed with their results. We can see pressure from coaches, having that high expectation to attend all training, but also maintaining a certain level of grades. We also see pressure in terms of achieving particular ATAR scores at the end of the year for tertiary education, but also attaining a high enough GPA to be able to get into some of the college internationally. In year 12, especially as the students or as your children become older, they will fall into relationships at times. And as a wellbeing coordinator, I've found that sometimes when we have a breakdown in these relationships, it can greatly impact upon their mental health and their stress through such an intensive year. So that's definitely something to be mindful of. Just in terms of physical, so we might also see traveling to and from school as a physical stressor that is added on to your child's everyday life. If you live quite far away, that is definitely something to consider. Moving sporting clubs, moving house, sometimes moving schools can also be a dramatic change in a student's life. And so it's best that they are supported through those difficult and also physically stressful periods. If we look at physical signs of stress, now these are some things that I encourage you to look out for in your children over time. In the immediate sense, if they're currently stressed in the moment, you might see an increase in heart rate, blood pressure, an increase in their body temperature. They might have a bit of shortness of breath. And so these are all stimulated through the release of adrenaline, which is a stress hormone in our body. Now, in VCE, over time, we typically see a little bit of burnout, and that's because our student athletes are trying to maintain high scores academically, but they're also trying to keep up with the demands of their training and their workloads. Now, over time, to avoid burnout, it's really important to be mindful of reducing all levels of stress where possible, because what we've seen, or what research suggests, is when we are highly stressed for a long period of time, cortisol will be released into our body. This is another type of stress hormone, and that can actually weaken our immune system, therefore leaving us more susceptible to colds and flus. And we often see a little bit of a ripple effect. So our students might become burnt out, and then they become sick, and then they miss a little bit of time off school and training, and then in turn they feel even more stressed because they've missed out on work, or fallen behind their training schedules. So that's definitely something to be mindful of. So the more that we can reduce stress, the easier it will be on the body and mind long term. Psychologically, you might see changes or shifts in attitude, motivation, self-esteem, their outlook on VCE and education. I've also seen some common trends towards the end of the year. Some people, just want to get their VCE because they know that in their mind they're going to get an AFL draft pick at the end of the year, or they know that they're definitely going to college and they've already been accepted. So it's important to maintain that high level of motivation to get your children through to the end of the year, and even just checking in can be a really, really helpful step in that process. I want to turn now to how you can support your children in managing stress. As I said, VCE can be quite a heavy year with lots and lots of things going on, not just academically, but year 12, they might be going for their license, they might be turning 18, and so there's quite a number of things that need to be balanced and also managed so that burnout does not occur. One of the first strategies that I want to talk about is mindset. Our mindset is very important in terms of the way that we approach stressful situations, but also how we cope and deal with stressful situations in the moment. So I would encourage your children to be mindful and aware of how they are feeling. Check in on a day-to-day basis, asking questions like, how am I feeling today? Am I feeling tired? Am I feeling burnt out? Am I feeling stressed? What are the things that are making me stressed? Also viewing stress as a challenge, because often stress can not only be a bad thing, but it can be a good thing. And we call this eustress. And so stress can often energize us, excite us, and we can use stress in a positive way to our benefit. And so if we can use stressful situations and perceive them as something positive for personal growth rather than threatening, then that can also be beneficial long term, and it can also enhance resilience. As a parent, it would also be great if you could promote coping flexibility. So if your child is struggling in one particular subject, or maybe struggling to cope with their current routine, have a chat with them and encourage them to be flexible, change things around, whether that's, instead of training in the morning, training in the evening, or instead of trying to do work before school, trying to do it after school. Or if it's not working on public transport, try an alternative method. And I think the more that you can adapt or encourage your child to adapt and find what works for them, that will be really beneficial long term. Another useful approach in terms of mindset is having approach coping strategies. Now, approach coping strategies are those that you can use to attack the stresses head on. So let's say your child has a lot of homework, encourage them to get straight onto the homework and get it done. Do not avoid the stresses that pop up, because the more you avoid those things, the longer that stress will go on, and the harder the situation will become for your child to manage. Shifting focus is the next little subtopic, which I thought might be useful to talk about. Now, I know that often at this adolescent age, there can be a little bit of stigma around seeking help and seeking support. And so sometimes it's really important to shift our focus and shift our mindset in a way that is conducive and productive. And so often if our mind is filled with a lot of thoughts and we are experiencing rumination, which is excessive negative thought and thinking processes, journaling can be a really good way to just sort of plonk it all down on paper and get those thoughts out. What I have found personally, and also with some of our students, a technique used that has been beneficial is using your phone. So just simply going into your notes section, typing in everything you're feeling or thinking, or something that made you angry, something that made you sad. Give yourself permission to simmer over it or think about it, for 5 minutes, and then click that delete button and erase those worries from your day. Another particular strategy could be practicing gratitude, so writing 3 things down every day that you're grateful for. This is actually a skill and it takes time to practice, and not always will we feel an immediate benefit, but the more you do it, the more you practice it. Results have also shown that this can be beneficial long term. I've put some other strategies in there like yoga, practicing your breathing, box breaths. So breathing in for 4, holding for 4, releasing for 4 seconds, and then holding for 4 seconds, just like a box there. We have alternate nostril breathing. So holding your nostril on one side, breathing in through the left, and then out through the right. And you can do this for however long you feel necessary. Stretching is great. Progressive muscle relaxation is also a popular one for our student athletes, and our performance psychology, Natalie, has run a few sessions about this at our school in recent years. But if your child would like to know more about this, they can definitely book an appointment with her. Typically, progressive muscle relaxation is great the night before a competition, or if your child is finding it hard to sleep and wind down and relax. It's really beneficial, just as they're going off to bed. Listening to calm music, and also appreciating and connecting with nature. So sometimes something as simple as going for a walk can be really beneficial. Routines is another really important component of managing stress, because often if we have a routine, we know what to expect, nothing can sort of creep up, and it can sort of just ease our mind that little bit more. So having a minimum of 8 to 10 hours of sleep every night, especially for our competing athletes, it's really important that they're getting plenty of sleep for physical restoration. Turning off all electronic media 30 minutes before bedtime. When we are exposed to blue light before we go to sleep, it actually represses melatonin, which is a hormone within our brain which assists us in falling asleep. And so the more that we can limit that, the better quality sleep our children might be able to have. Eating a large variety of food groups. So we also have our sports dietitian at the school, Ola, who is more than happy to book appointments to discuss the specific nutrition requirements that are specific for our different sporting athletes. So they can definitely book in an appointment if you want to know more about that. Packing the school bag and sport bag the night before. I personally like to have a to-do list on my phone. So when I was competing, I would have a to-do list on my phone of all the things I needed to pack before a competition. And so I'd refer to that list, and I found that that was really helpful, so I never forgot anything. In terms of academic support, what you can do is you can actually log into Compass, you can look at learning tasks, and this should be able to show you all of the assessments and homework that your child currently has on that day or in that week. That way you can then support them and ask them, did you need help to get that particular thing done? Or, when are you going to find time to do that thing? If you notice they're sort of avoiding that work, you can give them that little bit of encouragement and reminder. You can also talk to them about creating a study timetable. That's something I'm also willing to help with. So if they're finding it hard to balance and managing all of their commitments in the one day, whether that's having 2 training sessions, on a few days of the week in the one day, and sometimes it's hard to get the homework done, we can sort of look at those small windows of opportunity so that we can prioritize and get everything done that's important. It's also important to be aware of when your exam periods and heavy SAC periods are going to pop up. So you can suggest to help with studying before school or after school, or when you have an opportunity to do that. You can test your child with cue cards, or you can also use their SAC checklist, which is usually the list of key terms and definitions that they will be required to know. So you can just maybe have a verbal chat about that. If you have any academic concerns at all, it is also really important if you contact the year level coordinator, because they can also check in with your child and offer some academic support, but also wellbeing support. And we can do sometimes weekly check-ins just to see how they're going. Social support is another huge strategy which can assist in the well-being of your children. So where possible, check in with them. The support and love that you can provide them is, very underrated. Just something simple as asking, how was your day? Or is there anything that I can assist you with? Or encouraging communication. So if they don't feel comfortable talking to you, maybe talking to a coach, talking to a member at the school, or talking to a friend. It's really important, I guess, to have as best open communication as possible. That way everyone's on the same page. And if your child is struggling, we can all work together as a community to assist them. It's also really important to maintain those connections with their friends, whether that's in their sporting clubs and communities, or their friends at school, or maybe family friends. Connections with friends gives your child the opportunity to open up, to vent, to seek enjoyment, to get advice, and just to have those healthy network and support around them to get through those difficult periods in the year. Again, if you do notice your child is feeling overwhelmed or stressed, then definitely notify your year level coordinator. In terms of booking an appointment with myself, Ola, or Natalie, these are the steps that you can take. So I'm in charge of all year 11 and 12 students. We have Amy Holmes at year 9 and 10 and Jane Grant at year 7 and 8. So your child will be able to come and see us. We can book a time to sit down and chat, or I can book in a scheduled appointment for our athlete services consultants. If this particular presentation brought up some unsettling feelings, or if you need further support for your child or within your family, we've got some external supports that are available to you. So we've got the Parents Helpline, Kids Helpline, Headspace, Beyond Blue, Lifeline, and 1-800-RESPECT. If you would like to seek internal support from our wellbeing team, we have Leah White, who's the head of our wellbeing, Jane Grant, who's our assistant wellbeing coordinator, and Lily Arnott, who is our new mental health practitioner. Thank you so much for listening, and I hope that you got a lot out of this presentation. And if you would like to contact me further, please don't hesitate to email me. Have a great evening, everyone.